I mean, another thing I've been thinking about over the past week or a couple days is a line from William Burroughs on his the Seven Souls sort of Road to the Western Lands album, where he says, after describing the atomic bomb as like an electromagnetic disruption that like basically annihilates souls, like even after death. But the time he says is like, look at this penal colony that you were in, that we are all in. It is a like, look at this prison. It is a penal colony that is now a death camp. Like, and then he says, desperation is raw material for drastic change.
Mm-hmm.
And like Matt, like this is to your point at the beginning of the show, that like all like the hopelessness is predicated on the idea that people essentially can't do anything or won't,
Yeah.
or rather not can't, won't do anything.
Right.
Won't do anything. But like I I I truly do believe that the vast majority of people in this country do not want to live in a society like this. They do not want to live in a society where women are put in jail for getting pregnant. They do not want to live in a society where gay people are, imprisoned or worse just for being who they are. They do not want to live in a society where, corporations can just freely dump poison into the water you drink.
But for them to be able to express that meaningfully, they're going to have to break with their faith in the Democratic Party.
Yes,
and the good news is it's happening.
And the thing that Burroughs says right after desperation is raw material for drastic change is only those who can leave behind everything they once believed in stand a hope of escape.
Ding, ding, ding.
And that is it. It is like, it's a violent process and it's a scary one, but we are in the process now of having to, by necessity, abandon everything that was once held to be true or that was felt good to believe in.
Yep. People say, "Oh, the Democrats aren't going to save us," and it's like a lot of people want to be like, "I told you so." They want to relitigate 2016 because it feels good, but it doesn't fucking matter. What matters is, do people make that a productive realization, or do they look around, see that there's nothing they could do, or there's no energy, and then deciding to memento themselves and go back to yelling at the Democrats? And that's not going to come up to whether they're good people or not. It's going to come up to whether they have the opportunity to express those emotions, that desire for change, productively. And they can only do that when they're not looking at the Democrats, because they are the last ballast holding back any kind of coherent political response to the moment.
And it's just like how sustainable, how stable, and how much of a future is a country the size of ours, in which essentially 30% of the population has an absolute veto and authority over everyone else. And it's just a question of like, how long will people continue to follow a law until that so many people break it that it becomes totally unenforceable? I mean, then we get back to the thing about, how the police state continues to, expand its power while everything else is stripped away from like the functions of government.
It's true. Like the only thing we got is potentially is numbers, because the institutions are all at this point programmed, and they cannot be that programming can't be overwritten. They're going to have to be confronted from outside, and that means without a lot of those institutional benefits, like the organizational capacity and the technology, and the well compensated mercenary motivation to dole out violence, but a lot of people still, though. We got a lot of humans, and when they come together, they multiply each other's abilities. That's always been the only hope we've had. It's just before there were institutions that we could imagine could embody that, and we're now at the end point of that, where I think even except for the most deluded and most self-motivated, they can't look at the Democratic Party as anything than what it always was, which was the millstone around the neck of the American working class. It was a chain that was forged before the American working class came into existence, and then it just was placed around its neck and then grew around it like a dog collar, like digging into the flesh. And now it's just necrotic. It's got to go.
If another cause for optimism, I think, is going back a little bit to what we were talking about, how cops function as the American SA. Well, what does that tell you? What does it tell you that they've had to allocate so many resources that they have to pay the American SA $200,000 a year?
Yep.
The inherent mercenary nature of everyone holding up the columns of these institutions. That's huge. Just like the people that JB could pay. They're one paycheck away. And if they're one paycheck away, they're going to give up a lot easier than actual SA.
Absolutely. You saw those Uvalde pigs just standing around like, oh, wait a minute. I didn't think I signed up for me to get in danger. I signed up to put other people in danger. Thank you very much. Any prospect of like, oh yeah, no, you're not going to get to do whatever you want and then, go home. Like this is real conflict. I think a lot of them are going to be like, I don't think I have got it in me to do this.
Yeah, and
like,
they're cowards.
That is just the cops. It's everyone else too. It's everyone else.
Yep.
It's not even like a G. Gordon Liddy. There is no one in the entire deep state that I would consider like a true believer.
And
no one
here's another aspect to it. Like outside, like I'm talking like whatever percentage of the population of this country is truly wedded to an idea of like genocidal fascist terrorism and punishment and like like white supremacy, just like true neo-Nazi ideology. That segment of the population are the weakest cowards and babies imaginable. These are not people. I mean, like it is. Their beliefs are frightening and disturbing, but they themselves personally are not. And not only are there there are very, very few of them as compared to everyone else, they are individually to a person bitch-made cowards who should be if we could be walked over easily. And then another thing like about the cops, I saw a story today right before we came on about how the U.S. military is now no longer requiring a high school diploma to join the fucking army because of how bad their recruiting has been going. Dude, nobody is motivated to fight for this shit. And the people who are motivated to fight for it are fucking ants. They could be wiped aside easily.
That they purchase courage. Like that's why, as Felix said, like it has to be an incredible outlay of money to get people to actually do anything other than just post or flex like impotently. Like to put rubber to the road and even deal out violence, let alone potentially absorb it, you have to pay well. And the system's ability to dole out treats is, as we're seeing, under significant stress that it is also incapable of addressing.
Can I give a quick anecdote to illustrate the cops are cowards thing, which is that in real life practice, I watched this reality show called Alone, which is a survival show. They take a bunch of people to a remote place, drop them off with minimum gear. Last person survived gets $100,000. Every season, there is a cop as one of the contestants. And every season, his first interview is something along the lines of, I think my tactical training and environmental knowledge and, use of adrenaline in my daily job is going to give me the tactical edge here. And every season on like the first night in the wilderness, you hear the sound of a wolf in the distance. And the next morning he taps out saying, yeah, I came here to be a predator, not prey. Great show. Worth watching.
But before anybody runs out, it's like, oh, great, let's go fight the cops. That energy that we're talking about, like the energy to say no, we want something different, and its ability and the willingness of people to fight for it, it's not going to mean anything unless people can organize their activity and organize that energy so that it could be applied like collectively and not just wasted in personal private rage, just smashing against the rocks. So as much as there's like this desire to fantasize about some sort of apocalyptic confrontation, the task of really in front of everyone is the most boring one possible. And that is talking to fucking people enough to build the durable institutions of coordination that can make energy channelable and a force.
If you live in precarity, if you live in the American working class, you've already done something harder than fight the cops or die fighting the cops or do any of this. You have made it through up until this point. You've made it through adulthood. You've presumably survived every day of adulthood and your childhood in this country that at an increasing rate is ambivalent to it. That is the hard part. In the literal sense, that is the hardest thing you'll do. In a figurative sense, in the sense that it is unfamiliar to you, the hardest thing you'll do will be to talk to your fellow man.
Yes.
To live this thing that has been an abstraction for probably your entire life, which is the sense of community, togetherness, and lack of self in America. That is going to be the scariest and most unfamiliar thing for Americans. But the hard part is being done every day.
Absolutely.
And,
like we're enduring. I mean, we don't endure anything. We're a fucking little
Right. We're media pussies.
We're media pussies. But for the people who actually have to live out there in these streets, like you are experiencing the thing that we are fucking terrified of every day of your life.
Yeah.
And it is, and it's the scariest thing and the most alien thing to try to change anything, because any change feels like it has to be a change for the worse, given what everything is. But the whole point of like taking the leap of faith towards organization and community is that doesn't have to be true, and that even if you don't get your horizon that you're working for, the very act of working for it changes your life. It makes it worth living and robs a lot of the misery of its capability to like really drag you down the way that it does when you are just feeling powerless.
There's a reason that every single force in American life has been trying to keep you from talking to your fellow man.
Yeah.
With everything on every side, under every partisanship,
the
under
only
everything.
Unified message that you're getting is don't trust or talk to anybody else.